What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Jeff back here with another episode of Project Zailas. I do apologize about the delay between videos. I've had some medical and family stuff going on. It's kind of kept me busy. But nevertheless, I am back here with another episode for you guys. This time we are going to be installing this top secret style rear diffuser on the Z. This is a much coveted item for many Z owners. They love the style of this diffuser. I do as well. Had to pick one up. We're going to be installing this on the back. I'm going to be doing it primarily by myself. Not necessarily an easy task. It's not the hardest thing in the world, but it does require a little bit of time. So make sure that if you pick one of these up and start to do this, set aside a little bit of time for you to be able to get this on and get this done. Alright, so like I said, this is the top secret style rear diffuser. This is not an official one from Top Secret. If you want to get one of those, it's going to run you about $2,000 or so. This is one that I picked up on eBay. It cost me about $300. This is the FRP version. They also sell a carbon fiber version, but I opted for the FRP version just because I was going to be painting it matte black anyways instead of the carbon finish, and I figured, you know, why spend the extra couple $100 or $150 extra for carbon fiber. So I did want the extra strength though, so I went ahead and hand laid some carbon fiber on the inside just to strengthen it up, as well as some extra fiberglass and resin and stuff like that. Alright, so one thing to consider with this, actually probably the main thing to consider with this diffuser, is exhaust fitment. Obviously a lot of Z owners are going to change out the stock exhaust, and that will cause some fitment issues with this diffuser, so you do have to take that into account when you pick this up. I'm obviously running the Tomei Extreme TI muffler on the back, which is quite a large muffler size. It's a single exit exhaust, so there is a lot of cutting that you need to do in order to make this exhaust fit with this diffuser. It is definitely not a direct bolt-on. You have to do some cutting. So when you get this originally, you can see I've already done a little bit of cutting. It's solid on both sides. It looks just like this side on both sides. So when you try to put that on there, if you've got a large canister exhaust, it's not going to fit at all. It's just going to hang down on the exhaust side if you have a single, or on both sides if you have a double exit exhaust. So what I had to do in order to fit this diffuser or make it work with this exhaust is I had to cut this out. And you can see here, this is the cutting that I had to do in order to fit under the muffler right there. The muffler sits a little bit lower than where the exhaust sits under the bumper, and so the muffler actually comes out about here and then rises up as it gets toward the front. So this is about how much I had to cut out, and it was a lot of trial and error before I finally got to the point where it was clearing and everything. I wanted to minimize the amount of cutting, because anytime you do any cutting on any fiberglass pieces, you're compromising the structural integrity of the piece. So you want to really minimize and just take it one step at a time. Don't just like assume how much you're going to need to cut out and just cut a bunch out and then get under there and realize that you've just hacked your piece to, you know, to crap when you didn't have to. So I just took it one step at a time and just did, you know, one little ½ inch at a time, getting deeper and deeper until I reached the point where it was clearing. And then what I did is on the underside here, I went ahead and reinforced this really well with about 2 layers of carbon fiber underneath, and then a bunch of fiberglass mat and cloth, and a bunch of resin to really reinforce that around the cutting areas right here, especially around this back lip right here. This is where it can crack really easily, and these corners right here, really reinforce those very well. So I spared no expense and really took my time to really reinforce those areas. Remember that if you're cutting into a fiberglass piece, reinforce it really well and give it plenty of time to cure and get rock hard, so it's not going to crack on you in the future. Alright, so with that being said, get your piece cut out according to what exhaust you're running, and what it's going to come with, this is what my kit came with, is it's going to come with 2 Z brackets. You can see one on either side. That's the black brackets on the side there. Those are for mounting directly up to the sides of the bumper, not the sides, but the outer edges of the rear of the bumper underneath. And then it's going to come with a center U bracket, which is this guy, and that mounts the center piece to about right here, the under piece. So that's what, this piece is what keeps the centerpiece connected with two bolts from this to the diffuser, and then from this to the underside of the bumper that will need to be drilled. And the side Z brackets are 2 bolts from the brackets into the diffuser, and then from the Z bracket up into the bumper is 3 bolts. The first of which on the Z brackets there is actually a bolt that's already on the rear of the bumper. You won't have to drill that one. So the first one's done for you, but you do have to drill 2 more on each side up underneath. So a total of 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 bolts holding the whole thing up onto the underneath of the bumper. And then it also comes with these 2 metal brackets that need to be attached to the chassis of the car itself. So these go from the back lip of the diffuser here, and they actually attach up to 2 predetermined bolt locations on the chassis underneath the car that we will do last. It will also come with all the hardware you need, so nuts, bolts, washers, stuff like that. So at least my kit did, depending on where you order yours. I know there's quite a few sources where you can get this, so you know, where I got it from, it came with everything you need. So it didn't really require that much adjustment when I got it and took it out of the box. It was almost perfect. All the holes were pre-drilled and everything like that, except for there was a little bit of an issue that I had to re-drill a couple of the holes on one side of it because they were a little off. I pre-checked everything, and when I got it up on there, 2 of the holes were not lining up at all. So I went ahead and drilled 2 new holes, body filled, and then got rid of those old ones completely. So the 2 new ones line up perfect. The other side was good, straight from the box. I did also have to adjust one of the holes in the center. One of them was good, but the other one was about a ½ inch too far off to the side that I had to go ahead and readjust. Not a huge deal, but it does take time for you to, you know, recondition it, get the holes where they're supposed to go, make sure everything's lining up. Aside from that, the actual finish of the piece wasn't bad. There was a few chips. One of the corners was chipped pretty good and had a crack in it. No problem. I just went ahead and fiberglassed again on the inside, body filled the crack, and took care of it. As far as the finish of it, I've gone ahead and finished this in the matte black that I wanted to finish it in. It comes in a black gel coat finish, so a glossy finish, which I did not want. So I first went ahead and sanded the whole piece down completely and went in with my body filler where I needed to. There's some little gaps and things like that, little gashes, and body filled the new drill holes and all the little cracks and any imperfections that were in the piece. I went ahead and body filled those. Then I went ahead and primered it with 2 coats of filler primer, sanded that all down again, 1 more coat of full primer, and then I went in with my matte black paint. And so it's not a perfect finish. You can see there's some little imperfections here and there, but you know, I'm not that worried about it at all. It's perfect for, you know, for a rear diffuser that's going to get scuffed up. It's going to get dirty anyways. These pieces do not tend to remain pretty. They're not really supposed to be pretty. But you know, in the main areas where it's visible, it's definitely pretty enough. So I'm happy with the finish that it is right now. I won't be doing too much more. I may polish it up a little bit or just do some little touch-up sprays if I feel it's necessary, but I probably won't. But anyways, that's going to be your general package. Any cleanup that you may need to do and stuff like that. So without further ado, let's start putting this sucker on. I also forgot to mention that it does come with these side vortex generators as well. Alright, so the first order of business is you want to get the car jacked up. Fortunately for me, my car is on air suspension, so I'm able to lift up the rear a little bit higher than stock, which is going to be plenty of room for me to work with. If you don't have air suspension, then just go ahead and use a jack to jack the car up from the jacking points in front of the rear wheels. And don't get it up too high, but get it up just enough where you're going to have enough room, because you will need to do some drilling, get some drill holes up in there with a power drill or whatever you're using. So it will need to be high enough to be able to clear the length of your drill. But if it's too high, you're going to be having trouble trying to hold the diffuser up while you're trying to mount it in the correct locations. So don't get it up too high, but definitely get it up so that you have enough room to do the work you're going to need to do. Once the car is jacked up safely, might I add, make sure you got wheel chocks in the front if you need, and make sure the car is isn't going to roll anywhere or move on you. So once the car is up in the air, you're going to want to tape off these areas right here. So I've taped in the center, just below this crease line that's in the body and the bumper here, just below, probably a couple of inches below that, because that's where the two mounting bolts for the diffuser here are going to go up into the rear of the center of the bumper in the back. So you want a nice bit of masking tape right there. Use a little extra if you have it, just in case, to give yourself some more room if you're not sure exactly where the holes are going to be marked. We're also going to have a piece of tape right there underneath on the side, and the same thing on the other side right there. Now I'm going to move over to the side of the bumper here. You can get a closer look at where this tape is at. Now there is a mounting bolt, a factory mounting bolt from the bottom of the bumper up into this piece right. I don't know what this is, but there's a factory mounting bolt right there, and that's going to be the one of the bolts that's going to be already there for you. That's the bolt that I was talking about that you're going to be able to use, and that's this corner bolt right here. So this Z-bracket actually mounts up to that bolt right there, that factory bolt, and then you will need to drill two more up into the bottom of the bumper right there. Okay, so you need to put a piece of tape right here so that you will be able to mark where those holes will go, where you need to drill those two new holes. So follow where this factory bolt hole is right there, and just put a piece of tape kind of at this angle right here. That's where it's gonna, your Z-bracket is gonna sit. So there's one here, there's gonna be one right here in the center, and then one right here on the end. Okay, same thing on both sides. Just go ahead and put a piece of masking tape right there, and then the one in the center. Alright, so once you got your car jacked up and you got your tape applied to the bumper, we're going to go ahead and assemble it. Mostly anyways, you don't have to worry about the side vortex generators, but you want to put on your Z brackets onto the back of it, and as well as your center U bracket. They're assembled as follows. You want to look at the Z brackets, and you'll see one edge that's kind of curved. It's got a little bit of an angle to it right there. This goes downward toward the back of the diffuser, so it's attached like that. So these two, and this edge is going this way. Okay, same thing on the other side. You'll notice this edge right here is just slight angle right here that goes up as close as you can up against the edge right there, just like that. And the U bracket is assembled, the way I've assembled it anyways, is like this, so that the U is upside down, kind of like that. And interesting thing to note about the drill holes, there's two sets of holes, one on this side and then two on the other side that attach to the diffuser. One set of the holes actually, it has pre-drilled threads, so you can actually, you don't need a nut for those two. You can actually just drill the bolts right into the threads, so you don't need to add a nut to the inside right there. On the other side though, it's just a standard hole, so you will need to add a nut. And then those two attach to the underside of the bumper here. It's a little bit of a difficult process to get the nuts into the underside of the back of this lip right here on the bumper. It tends to be the biggest issue that most people have when they're installing these diffusers. So if you feel like you do need to flip that around so that the pre-threaded holes are on the inside, so that you can just screw in some bolts into the pre-threaded, as opposed to trying to get a nut in there and kind of tightening it with like a 10mm open end or something like that. You can do that. I don't see any reason why you couldn't flip that around and just do it in the opposite way. This is just the way I chose to do it. I'm kind of fortunate in the fact that I've changed out my stock exhaust, so I have quite a bit of room underneath here to play with, so I don't think I'm going to have too much trouble getting a nut in there and doing it this way. So anyways, that's the way I've done it. Do it however you want to do it, however's comfortable for you. But anyways, get it installed to this point. On the other side, you'll see how I bolted them in. I used the included hardware, and I used a washer on each one of these. So two for the center here, and then two on the edges as well. So go ahead and get it all bolted up like that, and we'll start our test fitting. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and do our test fitting now. You can see I've gone ahead and propped the diffuser up a little bit. You'll need to find something, especially if you're doing this by yourself, to prop it up, keep it up so that you can line it up correctly and make sure that it's centered and everything. It's a lot easier if you have somebody to help you hold it up, so you don't have to You might still have to prop it up a little bit to make it easier, but if you don't have somebody else, prop it up. You use pillows, boxes, whatever you have to make it easier, and get it right in the center or as close thereabout that you can get it. And then at this point, you're just going to go ahead and line up the Z-brackets underneath here. You can see here's the Z-bracket, here's the edge of the diffuser. The Z-bracket's going to line up perfectly with your tape here. You can see I've already pre-drawn previously. I've pre-measured this out and marked my holes there. But you want to go ahead and put this up so that the edge right here of the diffuser is right flush with the edge of the back edge of the bumper right here. Okay. By the way, if you have rear mud guards, obviously you need to take those off because it's not going to work with this diffuser. So if you have those and you're wondering why this doesn't look like this on yours, you got to take those off because they don't work. Anyways, line this up so that it's flush. You can see from the side angle here, this is the same right here. Okay. And then, like I said before, this hole right here is the factory bolt that goes underneath the bumper. Line that up with the factory bolt hole right there and go ahead and put that bolt in. Yeah, just go ahead and put that bolt in there. I'm not going to bother doing that, it takes a second. But make sure that bolt is in there, and you don't have to get it completely tight. You know, don't tighten it down too much, but get it in there where it's nice and solid. But obviously the front of the diffuser is not secured yet, so don't get it so tight where it's going to put stress on the fiberglass right there. So get it where it can still dangle, but it's not going to move around, so that it's lined up correctly. Once you get that bolt in there, move over to the other side. Make sure it's flush right here. Push it forward a little bit if you need. Make sure it's lined up just like that, and do the exact same thing with your Z-bracket. Line it up with that factory bolt hole right there and put that bolt in there. Once you have both bolts in on both sides, it should not move forward or backward at all. It should be in the correct location right there. Once you have both of those in and the diffuser is movable in the front like this, go ahead and push it up as much as you can with your hand and look very closely at where the Z-bracket is touching that tape right there. And once you have it pushed up as much as you can, have a friend hold it or do some magic and hold it with one hand and get a pencil with a sharp tip and mark very carefully the outline of the Z-bracket. You want to mark perfectly as much as you can. Get the pencil in between that little crease right there and mark the outline of the Z-bracket on both sides. Okay. Once you have that marked, you will then have your template areas for where you're going to need to drill your holes. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and remove the diffuser temporarily, and at this point go ahead and take the Z-brackets back off of the diffuser, because you'll need to go ahead and put them back onto the underside of the edges where you just marked. Find those lines and put them back up in there, and mark the holes, those two new holes that you'll need to drill. Alright, so once you got the Z-bracket disconnected from the diffuser, go ahead and line it back up with that factory bolt hole, the first one right there, and then put it right in the lines where you traced. So you can see where I traced it out here. There's the factory bolt hole right here, and then it's traced right here. So go ahead and line that up right where you traced, and then right where the holes are underneath, just go ahead and take your pencil and mark your holes. And you should get that right there. Same thing on both sides. Just go ahead and finish that procedure, and then you're ready to go ahead and drill your holes. Alright, so at this point I've gone ahead and drilled the holes, these two holes here, and then just put the Z-bracket unattached to the diffuser, it's detached, up into the position right here. I removed the tape and I just went ahead and bolted it in right where I drilled the holes. And it was a perfect fit. 1, 2, 3. Perfect fit up there. And then I did the same thing on the other side. So you have both Z-brackets attached to the bumper at this point. Okay? Now once you're at this point, we're going to move back to the diffuser. And you can see here what I've done is I've taped up the U-bracket here. The bolts are still in it, holding it down. But we're going to be removing those two bolts but we added the tape here to hold this in place. Now, this might be a little overkill. You might not quite need this much, but I added just as much as I needed just to be safe. The idea is just to put enough tape to hold it in place when you remove the bolts. You don't want it moving around. Make sure you do not cover these holes right here. You want those open and free, because we're actually going to be looking through those holes and putting a little the inside of a pen through both holes on both sides and marking where we're going to be doing our drilling on the center section of the bumper. Okay, so go ahead and get this taped down really well so that it does not move, and then go ahead and remove the bolts from the underside of the diffuser. If it starts to move on you, stop, put the bolts back in, make sure it's in the right place, tape it down some more, and then take them out until it's solid. Alright, so we have now attached the diffuser to the Z-brackets that were previously attached to the underside of the rear bumper. I went ahead and fully bolted those on. They're tightened to hand tight. Don't go much more than hand tight at all. Just tighten it until it starts to stop, and don't go tighter than that, or else you run the risk of cracking the fiberglass. That's just across the entire project. Any bolts that you're bolting into fiberglass, be very careful. Number one, do not use power tools. Always tighten by hand, and always stop when it gets to about hand tight, or else you're going to crack your fiberglass. So we've got it attached on both sides to hand tight, and now at this point this is just dangling right here. We went ahead and removed the bolts on the underside right there, but we've taped this. We taped the U-bracket so it's not moving. It's exactly where it was when the bolts were in. So we've got the same exact position, only now we have the holes are open. So now we can actually stick something through there and make our points where we're going to be drilling. And in order to do that, you need something super thin. So I went ahead and dissected a pen and took out the center ink. I don't even know what to call this, but it's the tube that the ink goes into. And it's really thin enough to get up into the screw holes underneath there. So I'm going to stick this through both ends, and remember, we left the hole open, we didn't tape over it, so it's open directly from the bottom of the diffuser up into the bumper, with a masking tape on the bottom of the bumper. So we're going to stick this through, and we're going to make our holes right there where we need to. Now this is also the point where you need to make any final adjustments to your positioning. If you feel like it's skewed at all in one direction or the other, definitely do a little bit of movement if you need to. If you need to move it over just a little bit or something like that, make sure it's exactly where you want it to be, because once these holes are drilled, that's where they're going to be. And if they're wrong, then you're going to have to drill new holes, and you really don't want to make Swiss cheese out of your rear bumper here. So measure it, look at it many times as you need to, stand back, have somebody else look at it, whatever you want to do, make sure it's exactly where you want it to be before you mark your holes, and especially before you start doing your drilling. Okay, so far I'm really liking where this is sitting. I don't think I'm going to have to do much adjustment at all. I may just pull it very slightly, maybe 1/8 of an inch or less over to the left side, and mark my holes right there. And then once I drill that up in there, it'll be set, it'll sit right there where I want it, and that'll be perfect. Now this thing by design is supposed to, this lip right here is supposed to come right up to that natural crease line in the back bumper. You see that there, so it's sitting pretty much exactly where I want it to sit without much adjustment at all. So I'm super happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and make my holes, and then I'm going to go ahead and remove the diffuser, and then we'll start drilling those holes right there. Alright, after having made my drill points, I went ahead and drilled those holes out right there. I measured twice, drilled once, made sure I didn't have to go back in and do it again. After I had the holes drilled out, I went ahead and attached the U-bracket up to the bumper. I went ahead and just threw a bolt in through the back side of this lip on the bottom part of the bumper here, and then put a nut up going towards the bumper. Okay, so it's on there nice and tight. We now have the U-bracket attached to the bumper. The Z-brackets also on both sides attached firmly to the underside of the bumper. So we're now going to go ahead and attach the rear diffuser up to all of our bolt points, 2 here and 2 on each of the sides. Alright guys, so we have the diffuser now installed. We have all of the bolts in, including the vortex generators on the sides. I went ahead and put those on. They're optional, you don't have to put them on. I've seen people with this diffuser that opt to run it without the side diffusers, which looks great as well, if that's what you feel. But I like the way they look, so I went ahead and threw those on, of course. One thing to note is while you're putting the diffuser on, while you're mounting it, make sure you put the diffuser or the vortex generators on the sides before you bolt it all up, especially these side bolts underneath here. Put that on first. If you bolt those up first, you're going to have a hell of a hard time trying to get the vortex generators on there. So put those on first and then mount everything up. You shouldn't have any trouble getting the bottom bolts on with the generators on. So there is a little bit of a gap you can see right here between the lip on the diffuser and the bumper. It's just about a 1/4 inch gap. It's not really that big of a deal. I could leave it alone and it doesn't really bother me that much. And really, I think the only reason that the gap is there at all is because the plastic on the bottom part of the bumper is just it's hanging down a little too low. I've never done a bumper tuck or anything like that on this, so it's the wind over time and everything has kind of pushed it so it hangs a little bit lower, which is causing this gap. You'll notice here as I put my hand under here and push this plastic piece up, as I push it in, that gap eliminates. So you can see how that gap closes up. And so if you really wanted to fix this, if this was a big deal for you, really all you'd have to do is really just fold this this piece of plastic underneath here, under the bumper. Use a heat gun and heat it up really good and just hold it and fold it up so it closes up that gap just a little bit. For me, it's really not that big of a deal. What I'm probably going to end up doing is actually just filling this with a little bit of foam, just like a little 1/4 inch piece of like a foam pad, just to give it a really nice little close seal. That way it's also not rubbing up against the bumper and causing abrasion on the bumper itself and scratching my paint. So I think that's going to be a better option for me than trying to close up that gap. But it's up to you, do what you want to do. At this point, the only other thing that we need to do is put our metal brackets on. They, like I said, they attach directly to the chassis, so I will have to jack up the car a little bit at this point, but after that, you're good to go. Looks great. I love this diffuser. It's one of my favorites, and I'm really happy that I was able to make it work with the Tome exhaust. You don't see it very often with that exhaust, but and some people even think that it's not possible with this exhaust, but this is proof that it definitely is. Let me get the camera under the car here and show you what it looks like with the cutout. Sorry about the lighting, it got a little dark here. But you can see here's the muffler here, and here's where I cut it out. So you can see the muffler actually extends a little bit below where the diffuser sits here. So this is the area that we had to cut it out. But looks great. There's no clearance issues. You know, I didn't have to cut it up too much. It sits perfectly in there. And one cool thing is this is also going to allow for a lot of water drain too, because when water gets into this diffuser, it can tend to pool up a little bit, but it's going to be able to drain out through that cutout spot right there. If you're worried about water, if you don't have this cutout, just drill some holes kind of in the back corners over there, just some holes, some water drain holes, and that'll help water to drain out. If you don't have any water drain, water will pool inside this diffuser, so you don't want that. Alright, so I'm going to jack up the car and we'll find those mount points. Alright, here we are under the car, under the diffuser to be more specific. This is where the stock muffler usually goes, right here. It's been removed, obviously. So we're attaching, or we have already attached at this point, the metal brackets that go to the chassis. So they're going to attach to the back lip of the diffuser right here. Be very careful when you're drilling these holes. The brackets should be pre-bent in the right bins where you need to attach them. I actually got one of my brackets was not bent up here. They forgot to bend one end of it, so I went ahead and had to bend one end of this one, but it just bolts onto right here on the driver's side, right here next to, it's pretty close to the muffler, about 7-8 inches or so away from the edge is where I mounted it. And then the mounting point, it's kind of hard to see, I'm sorry about that. The mounting point to the chassis is kind of just, here's the tire, the back tire, driver's tire, and then here's the inner fender well, and it's just on the inside, right here. So on the inside of the fender well behind the rear driver's tire, and it just goes up against the side of the chassis right there, and there's a pre-existing stud that's coming out. You're just going to put the bolt or the bracket right over there. right over the stud, and then put the nut that was on there previously to hold that on. And that's driver's side, and then passenger side is right here. So it's a good, I don't know, probably 10 inches. I mounted about 10 inches from the edge here on the lip. And then this one goes up to, see if you can see this. This point right here is where it mounts up. Just behind the wheel hub and everything, and the pumpkin right here. It's right up here. And if your car is like mine, there was this metal plate right here that was previously bolted right here. The stud is so small that you can't actually bolt this 1/8 inch metal bracket and this piece. There's not enough thread to put the bolt back on there, so I took this thing off completely and just bent this piece down and then zip tied it to the metal bracket so it doesn't rattle around, doesn't move around. I looked for another place to re-bolt it up or something. I was thinking about maybe cutting it off, but I figured I'll just zip tie it and get it up out of the way, and it doesn't move at all. It's super solid right there. Okay, so that's where the two metal brackets go. Make sure it's nice and solid, nothing moves, and you should be good to go. Again, be very careful when you're drilling into this back edge right here, because it can crack very easily. Don't drill too high up here and not too low. Try and get somewhere in the center, and very carefully, very slowly. Alright, so once you got those two metal brackets taken care of, you are good to go. You got your rear diffuser all installed, and yeah, that's it. Super clean, super nice, top secret style diffuser for the 350Z. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If it helped, give it a like. I really appreciate it. It helps my channel grow, and be sure to subscribe to see more stuff in the future. Still working on this car a lot. Got a lot planned for it. Gonna have some Zailas Tech V2 louvers on the back window there pretty soon. As soon as they finish making them for me. I've got some really nice new wheels coming, some Workmeister M1s coming, deep dish rims coming, and then Rocket Bunny eventually. And I'll be documenting all that stuff. So if you guys are interested in that, give it a subscribe and follow me. It'll be fun. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for the next one. Peace out.